Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Two Medics. My name's Bethan John. I'm a current GP trainee. Forgot what I did for a second then. Yeah, current GP trainee, ex-neurosurgery trainee. Yeah, I think you guys know that already. But yeah, today with me I have, as per usual...
Well, you replaced me last time with Tharusha.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't you?
Oh, it was a bit awkward. That was blame Tharusha for that very last minute little stand-in.
Tharusha's stepping on my toes.
Anyway, who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you?
Hi, I'm Neena. I am a GP with a special interest in urgent care.
Oh, how are you? Are you good?
I can't say that without laughing. It sounds so lame.
Are you good?
Yeah, how are you? You've had a bit of a crappy day today.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. It's been a day. Yeah, I had my flu and pneumococcal vaccine yesterday and was okay. Like that evening, I never really get reactions to jabs or anything, and then ended up with like a horrible migraine overnight, which might have been because of that. I don't know. Tried to drive to work this morning, got about 10 minutes in and realised I couldn't actually see that well. So turned the car around to come home and then the car bloody broke down. So yeah, it's been a day, but yeah, never mind. But we're recording this podcast earlier on in the week this week actually, aren't we, than we normally would.
We are. We normally record on a Thursday, but we're doing it on a Tuesday today.
It's mainly because there's just so much stuff. No, I'm only joking.
Timetable issues.
Yeah. No, I've double booked.
Yeah, we cut it because there's too much drama on Twitter. We couldn't handle it anymore. We thought,
we had to put a cap on it. But no, as per you, I know the guys say this, and we always say this like every time we're on it. But it's like, why does all the big stuff tend to happen? But it's always happening, isn't it? It's not like.
Never ending.
But do you remember the first one drama we did? I think, was it like Shivani's boost tweet? Was that the first one we did?
Yes.
We were just like...
If you think, I don't know if I should say this, but how much prep we did for that podcast episode. Do you remember we were like back and forth, prepping and having a nice little sheet, and now it's just like, are you free? I'm not free. Are you free? Right, let's just start.
Neena, you're spoiling the illusion.
It's going to turn out like, sorry.
No.
I mean, it's all very well prepped.
Of course. But I've actually got a bit of a bone to pick with you, Neena, because the last time we recorded this podcast was, I think, the end of August. And as a GP, I've been trying to make an appointment with you, and I've had to wait over 4 weeks to see you again to do this.
So sorry. Apologies to Teresa for not meeting our 2-week GP target, which was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it, this week when she announced that GPs must see patients who need an appointment in 2 weeks, despite everyone actually working like more than flat out. Like, yeah, sure, love, we'll just do that.
They did the same thing a couple of months ago. Do you remember with the ambulance, with the ambulance waits? And then they said, all hospitals must take immediate steps to make sure that no ambulance waits longer than 30 minutes. And they're doing it the same thing now. Like all GPs must see, patients within 2 weeks. I mean, why? It's such a childish approach to the whole situation. So, like, why do you think that's not happening now? Like, surely you've got to actually think, hang on, why is it not happening now? Why aren't we doing that? Maybe when we know what the problem is, we can put steps in to actually solve it.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't we doing it now? And it's because there's no staff. So where are the staff that's going to make this suddenly happen? But I read the Pulse article about it, and it made me laugh. And they quoted her, and it said, the government says they will free up funding for practices to employ other roles, including GP assistants and more advanced nurse practitioners. And then it went on to say, it remains unclear what a GP assistant actually is. I was like, yeah, it's good. It's good, isn't it, that the powers that be are like saying, oh, yeah, we'll provide money to employ more GP assistants, when that's not even a thing that exists.
It's not even a thing that exists. But that's the thing. They don't actually need to have a plan, do they? They just need sound bites, because all they're trying to do is to gain public. They want to turn public. Oh, we have my own theory on this, but this is just another route to privatization, isn't it? This is the classic divide, turn patients angry, put the blame on GPs, put the blame on primary care, and then
You,
make them angry.
You're right about the sound bites.
And then in can come private practice.
There you go. Sweeps the floor.
Yeah. There we go.
But you're right about the sound bites, because it was like with Brexit, wasn't it? And they had that massive red double-decker bus, and it said something like, there'll be 350 more million pound for the NHS if we leave the EU. Like, yeah, okay. Complete BS, as we all know, isn't it? But like you say, it sounds good. But there was quite a lot of like back and forth about all that when it was happening. And there was a comment that came up that just really struck me about how there's still quite a big disconnect between some of our secondary and primary care kind of colleagues, when what I presume was a secondary care colleague said, well, we do 2-week waits for certain presentations across secondary care specialties, but that wasn't doable before it was done. So why aren't you doing it in GP? Just missing the point, like, completely.
But the fact that you can write something like that just shows how poor your knowledge and understanding is of what we do in general practice. You're consulting 1.2 million, like the volume is just incomparable. Like in GP, we're consulting 1.2 million patients every single day.
Yeah.
You don't have the capacity for more. And secondly, it's a completely different, completely different presentations that you're seeing. So, already when you're referring patients for a 2-week wait, they've already been seen by a GP. Yeah. Most of them have had like some investigations done. It's been filtered down and triaged. Whereas in general practice, it's just whatever comes through the door. Yeah. It's a ridiculous comparison, and it just shows how poor
Educate yourself. Educate yourself. Yeah. So for anyone who's thinking the same, was like, well, we do 2-week waits in hospital. Why isn't GP the same? There's your answer. But another that kind of leads us quite nicely on to a tweet about patients' expectations of healthcare. Did you want to read that one out?
Yes. So this was a tweet by Ian Beardsell, and his Twitter handle is @DocIb. And he put, the bit I don't understand is why no one telling the public that their expectations of the NHS are simply too high. There needs to be an element of self-care first for many. GP appointments are available, as are A&E services, but we cannot cater for the worried well. Ooh.
I don't know if I see their point, but I don't know if I agree about this concept of the worried well, because how does someone who's not a healthcare professional know if they are the worried well or if they are the worried unwell? Like, if you have symptoms, how, it's very easy for us to say, like, this is a thing to worry about after taking a history examination, tests or whatever. How is it how can we expect, I hate the term lay people, but people without like kind of healthcare training or medical training to actually know that unless they see someone? I don't know. I just think, yeah.
I mean, I don't think we can lump the worried well in one little bunch, because obviously if you've got a patient coming in with like a left shoulder pain and, they're in their mind that could be heart attack related, then I wouldn't class that as the worried well. I would class that as somebody with a genuine medical concern. And I don't really like the term worried well at all, to be honest. Good one. But I do, in the defense of this tweet, because I know most of the responses were, what we've spoken about before, about how, the worried well, we shouldn't put the onus on the patient to interpret their symptoms and their diagnosis and triage themselves appropriately. However, we do see quite a few patients who, I'm going to get myself in trouble here. We do see quite a few patients who perhaps, with maybe some education throughout schooling, or like the stuff that maybe our generation or the generation above may not have come to see a doctor for, that I'm seeing a lot more in younger generations. Yeah. For example, patients who have had like a runny nose for 3 hours, or someone who thought they might have had a little cold sore a week ago. It's gone now, but they just wanted to run it past. It's just those tiny little things that they're not worried about anything else more significant, and they're very mild. I actually think that there is a health education that is lacking in the community. It's not an individual issue. I think it is more of a wider issue here.
People support networks have changed,
public
haven't they?
health and health education. Exactly. And I also think that we are getting squeezed everywhere in the NHS, and we just have to think about what our role is. So I do think that the GP is often like the default dumping ground for everything. And I think that's just because we're the only ones that do it, but we're not actually the ones that are trained for it. We may not be best placed to do it, but we're the only ones that seem to do it at the moment. So like things like sick notes or council letters or schooling issues, like I just feel like we're just the dumping ground for...
Yeah, it's for you to take responsibility so people can avoid taking it themselves, isn't it? No, and I agree what you're saying about education, but I think like in an ideal world, this is very much not at the moment, and the maximum that we're doing at the moment doesn't even feel like we're doing the bare minimum at the same time, if that makes sense, in terms of we can't at the moment even cater for all the sick people the way things are. But if that was not the case and we were in an ideal world, I as a GP or as a community care physician or practitioner, I would love for that education to be a part of my job, thinking, well, I'm based in the community, I might be best placed to actually deliver this education to people. I know that people's opinions will differ on that, but for me, that's something that I would think I would enjoy doing. But as general practice as it is at the moment, there is just no way. But, we all want to aspire for more for general practice, and, ideally there should be more resources than just for the most sick people. But I see what you're saying. The reality is that it's very much not that at the moment, is it? For many different reasons, mainly the Tories. But... And
it's not anything we want to do. It's simply you've just got, this huge demand. And how do we make sure that the people who really need it are being seen? And it shouldn't be that way, but that's unfortunately how it is. It's how we prioritise. If you're on call, you prioritise the sickest ones first. And it's like that on a larger scale, I think.
I saw, I haven't put it down on our podcast list, but it just reminded me of a tweet I think I saw by Jimmy Lamb this week. It might have been yesterday, where he kind of said, I think he said he was a bit disheartened or a bit fed up of kind of saying to patients at the moment, that's the best you're going to get on the NHS at the moment, essentially. And that does kind of get you down, doesn't it? Because that people deserve better and should be getting better, but you physically can't provide it.
We've delivered better before.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you always assume that you're going to deliver a better and better service throughout the years, but actually it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and that's due to factors that are out of our control.
Yeah, and there's so many things, isn't it? Like there's always lots of talk about like social care and how that's not kind of good enough, and then we get this concept of, again, another horrible term, but bed blockers. And that's just something that Salva brought up this week. And it just fits quite nicely in here, I think, where Salva said, it's a bit of an insult to call vulnerable patients who can't be safely discharged from hospitals bed blockers. And it is, but all these terms get created, don't they? Because we just can't deliver what we need to deliver anymore.
No.
It's this horrible purgative language.
I haven't put it on here either, but there was on our list. Sorry, you can tell we're a bit more, less prepared for this.
No, we've got this, Neena. We've got this.
Telling each other. There was another tweet which actually I've been thinking about the last couple of weeks anyway, but by Dr. Ali G. Hashtag I stand with Ukraine, and she put here a quick question for NHS England. Blah blah blah. I've spent many years asking/encouraging patients/parents to buy simple over-the-counter medications, e.g. paracetamol, ibuprofen, antihistamines, etc. For themselves. And then she put, in light of the ongoing cost of living crisis, if we see patients or parents who are struggling to make ends meet, should we, as responsible healthcare professionals, still be doing that? And I think she's talking in terms of prescribing those simple over-the-counter medications for patients. And I think that's definitely something that has changed in my practice the last few weeks, because before this, we used to get bombarded, like in my practice that I worked in, emails constantly saying, please do not prescribe this medication. It can be bought over the counter. Please encourage patients. And if we had prescribed it, we would then have to explain why we prescribed, the paracetamol or the antihistamine, or even piles medication, thrush medication, when patients can buy it over the counter. But we're at a point now where people can't even afford food.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got a child with a temperature, a fever at home, or, you know, if someone's in pain and they just need something simple like paracetamol to keep them going. I just prescribe now.
Yeah.
I don't even hesitate.
Well, what else can you do? Like, it's the best of the bad options, if that makes sense. I remember Liam Barker kind of, I think, mentioning that kind of similar sentiment over the summer with all the antihistamine type stuff. And I think I remember him tweeting saying, you know, you can get all your nasal sprays and your fexofenadine like over the counter, but obviously where he was working, or where he is working, in a relatively deprived area of London, it's like, you know, it's all well and good being able to say that, but if the people can't afford to go to the pharmacy and purchase it, then you know, why wouldn't you prescribe it?
I think fexofenadine was £12. It's like £12
Yeah, it's
a
not
pack.
cheap.
Yeah, or you get patients paying for like a year's worth of prescriptions, and then you know, they're asking, well, can I not just get it on prescription?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But just the whole thing's a shit show, Neena. That's the way it's going.
It really is.
Got no hope. I'm all defeated.
Talking about no hope.
Oh gosh, this is such a downer.
It's such a downer. Oh dear. You know our funny tweets that we have at the end? We should intersperse them through the podcast. Everybody's going to be all down and like turn us off. But yeah, some of the responses to this tweet were pretty.
Oh God,
got me a bit down. So this is a tweet by Digital and Tech GP. His Twitter handle is @DrGandal52. And he wrote, what is something you thought you knew about general practice that you later learned to be untrue? Surprise me if you can.
Everything. I feel like my whole career has been a lie.
Get out now. Get out.
But I wasn't thinking of just GP. Obviously, I'm only kind of 6 months into my GP training, but I was thinking about this in like medicine as a whole. And I just think, oh my God, I feel like I did I didn't go into it completely blind, and I feel like I did some research, but no matter what people tell you, it just can't.
You did some research. You asked me and May-J, what's it like then?
I mean, nothing to do with GP. I can't comment on GP, but about medicine in general, and just about being a doctor and stuff.
Sorry.
But it's just, but I just think like all of it's a lie. Every bit of it, all the professional fees, the exams, not a lie, but you know what I mean? I just didn't anticipate that it was going to be like this.
I did no research before I went into it. I'm like, oh yeah, healing people. That sounds fun.
I generally thought that I would earn enough money to like live comfortably, and I knew I was never going to be rich. Like I wasn't that naive, but I just thought I've got a steady job. I'm in a career that's needed, and that I will earn a wage that will allow me to not have debt, and I'll be able to live a nice life if I want to. But oh boy.
But that's how it was sold to us at school as well. Like you're going to have a stable job and you're going to be financially secure.
And I think maybe it was at some point, wasn't it, when people had like free accommodation and stuff, not to kind of go over all the same stuff again that lots of people and ourselves have mentioned previously, but you know, and how our pay hasn't gone up with inflation and stuff. But it is just another argument for pay restoration, isn't it? Like I can't make my wage stretching to cover all my bills and just keep accumulating more debt. And I think I've been in this job 10 years. I'm still like, it's just, But did you have anything that it kind of struck for you in terms of what you thought?
Probably, I think, I've said this before again, just previously, but I think being the dumping ground for a lot of stuff, like I always thought that like for general practice, you just kind of deal with your patients that you've seen that day in your clinic. I'm laughing because it's so silly now. Like I just thought you see your patients in your clinic, and then, you know, you just deal with the paperwork about, you know, related to that, and then you just kind of go off in your merry way. But
did you think you'd be able to actually practice medicine? Yeah. How naive were you, Neena?
And I'm dealing with all this stuff. Like I haven't. I'm not. You feel like you've got to be a bit of everything.
Yeah.
But, it was more just dealing with everything else that I didn't really know that I was going to have to deal with. Like what I said before, like all the social stuff.
Yeah. And I guess maybe we have these preconceptions because it hasn't always been like how it is now. So I guess they've come from a place of some truth. But yeah, things are just not going well for any of us at the moment.
No.
But talking about kind of money, and of course there's the horrible cost of living crisis that's kind of wreaking havoc at the moment. A tweet came across my feed, which I thought was quite enlightening.
So this is, shall I read it out? This is a tweet by Lynn May, and she put, unpopular opinion, £100,000. See, my head doesn't even compute. A £100,000 salary is not the wealth you think it is. After tax, your take-home monthly is $5,457. If you are a man with a family of 4, with a wife who is yet to go back to work, with a mortgage of £2,000, no one can tell me that family is rich based on that alone.
Let me do some quick maths. So 5,457 take away a mortgage of 2,000. Oh gosh, Neena, that only leaves 3,457 a month to live on.
That's really tough.
How can you cope with that?
Mortgage of £2,000 a month, blimmin' heck.
But yeah, that was, I don't know, that made me rage. It absolutely made me rage. Imagine not reading the room and thinking, okay, I'm going to tell people.
How blind you have to be.
And all the quote tweets and comments were just like, what the actual F? But you have to think of this in the bigger picture, because benefits like employment support allowance, someone brought up this example, so ESA, the entire yearly income for someone on the premium enhancement, or what they call support group level of ESA, so the maximum that you can have, is £6,838 a year.
A year.
Sorry, a year. A year. Sorry. But and then they're saying that like 5,457 a month is really not the wealth that we think it is, and it's like, okay,
it's really not reading the room, is it?
Tell those people that it's and someone else pretty much summed this up, and they said right-wing politics is the art of explaining why £10,000 a month isn't really that much, whilst £100 a month is more than enough. And that was by Charlotte Benton. But it's so true, isn't it? It's like one rule for us, another rule for them. But did you see how the usual kind of right wing, why are the lefties using food banks when you can buy a kilogram of oats for 70 pence? Have you noticed how they're back?
Yeah, so this was a tweet by, do we have the original tweet on there?
Yeah, it was Effie Deans, I think. And she said, I can buy 1 kilogram of oatmeal from Tesco for 70 pence. It'll make 20 meals. Oh my God, imagine. Why does the left pretend people in Britain are starving? On what planet is 20 meals of porridge suitable nutrition?
And so this was summed up really well by Louisa Britton, whose Twitter handle is @RoadsideMum. And she put, today the poor have again been advised that we can buy 1 kilo of value oats from Tesco for 70p, and 50 grams makes a meal. That meal has 188 kilocalories. 3 meals offers 564 kilocalories a day, or to put it another way, 28% of what a woman needs, or 23% for a man. We're being advised to die again.
God, it's just... Ugh.
And I think Neena, Viz put down, like, what about, that doesn't meet your nutritional needs whatsoever. We're just going to see like a rise in diseases like scurvy.
Absolutely.
And people aren't getting enough vitamin C.
It's just insulting, isn't it? It's incredibly insulting. But I know the lads love a fess hole, and there was one that I spied this week that made me laugh, and it said, my husband voted Tory. Nothing else in 16 years has made me consider divorce more seriously. Like, I could never date a Tory, man. It's just like number one turn off.
Genuinely, I couldn't. Well, I'm married, so it's a bit late.
Oh, you say you married a Tory then? I was like, oh my God, this is officially now an intervention. It's no longer a podcast episode.
No, but what would you do if I told you that my husband was a Tory? Firstly, I would never marry a Tory.
I'd need some time to think about the implications of
Would
this.
you divorce me as a friend?
But then I think, would she be Tory by association? Oh my God, no. She breathes the same air as a Tory. But no, obviously your husband's not a Tory, and I want to make that very clear, like you have just done as well.
He's not a Tory. He's not a Tory.
I don't know, I just couldn't, like, when I remember when I was like online dating previously, and I don't know, any sniff of a Tory, I'd be like, no, it just cannot happen. It cannot happen. I went on a first date with a closeted Tory once. And as soon as I realised...
I don't think you told me which one.
Oh, God, no. We'll have to do it.
Let's not do this. Let's do this.
One day I'll write my dating memoirs, which will be highly amusing. But no, this is...
You have to send me the first copy, because I know a lot of these memoirs and it's worth a read.
This has nothing to do with the flapjack. This is a completely different story. But as soon as I realised I was dating...
The 80-year-old?
No. Oh, God, Neena, this is... selling all my secrets. He was actually mid-50s, but anyway, by the by. Romancer of the elderly. Anyhow.
Care of the elderly. That's why.
No, when this guy when I found out on the first date that this guy was a closeted Tory, and then he kind of asked me for asked me for a kiss, and he had just been eating squid, and I was like, no, I can't, I'm allergic to squid, I'm afraid. And he was like, but you've just ate it too. And I was like, no, I haven't. Just made a quick exit. I don't even know how we've got onto this.
How did you find out he was a closeted Tory?
As in, like, he never offered up this information freely in our like preamble, and then when we were sitting having dinner, I realised that he was having some kind of, as you get more comfortable with someone and they start to kind of show them their real selves and their real opinions come out, and he started becoming kind of very right wing, and I was like, oh, I've been duped here. Like, this is not the kind of information that I thought was going to come out, but it did. So, I don't think he would have denied it, but maybe I've said closeted Tory is not the right phrase, but he was a Tory in disguise. His tweed jacket and elbow pads should have given that away, but you know me, I like to give the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, a tid, not a tilf. Oh my God, it's going the wrong way.
Oh my God, it's really going the wrong way. Let's move on.
Oh God, where are we? So,
talking about bad opinions. So, this is a tweet by Kat Patton, and she put, shout out to the HCA who had a go at me for not having done a discharge summary yet. It was 4:30, my shift was 8 to 4, and I hadn't stopped yet. In brackets, I ate whilst requesting things, close brackets. Oh, that broke my heart when she wrote that.
I know. It's like as if she had to justify herself. It's like, no, you don't need to justify yourself.
I didn't
this is completely inappropriate.
I ate whilst I was working. I was like, you shouldn't have to do that.
But this is going to take two directions now, isn't it, Neena? So we go down the direction of like the HCA and the hierarchy side of things, but then we also are going to go down the direction of an amazing cake opinion. Oh,
yes. So can we start with Ronan's response to this tweet? Because I really liked his response to it. So he put, HCAs are an important part of the team and should feel empowered to speak up for patient safety. But harassing someone for a discharge summary is not that, and likely reflects behaviour they've witnessed and modelled and has been allowed to continue.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly. This poor girl, Kat, had so many arsewipes in her mentions, literally criticising her for her time management, her priority skills. Why were you doing a discharge summary at 4:30? It's like, none of yous were there. Like, no one understands.
And why do you think she hasn't done it earlier? If she hasn't done it earlier, it's because she's had other things that have taken priority.
Nobody wants to understand that, Neena. Nobody wants to understand that. So
how do people not get that? Like, what do you think she's been doing? Poor cow had to even eat while she was working.
Exactly.
Crying out loud.
And then people were like, oh, but the HCA was just advocating for the patient. And it's like, no, you can take HCA out of this. It doesn't matter what grade or what role or what job this person
it's
has.
As if she's advocating for the patient. Why? Because
she's not advocating. She's just being rude. It doesn't matter what role you have or what, in this perceived hierarchy of things. She could have been any person in that role, but she was just being vile. And like you say, Ronan has mentioned maybe that was modelled by other colleagues. I don't know, but there's never any excuse. And why would we intentionally delay discharges anyway? Like, it's no odds to us. No odds to us at all.
Exactly. Well, I wouldn't ever tell a HCO nurse, why have you not done that now? Because I'm assuming they haven't done it now because they have been busy with other things. Like, it's not for anyone's place to shout at, it's that tone. It's the tone it's done, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, I don't think anyone thought this was going to kind of take the turn that it did. And to be fair, we haven't seen this rhetoric come up for a little while, so I guess it was due. But
I love every time we do though. It's a little chunk of gold in the response.
Absolutely. Sometimes one person notices them, and then you see all the subtweets, and you're like, "Oh, okay, shit's gone down. Like, I need to have a look at this." But I won't mention any names or whatever, because God forbid we be accused for pylons or whatever. And I don't know. It just amazes me that this tweet never got taken down, never got deleted. So this person clearly stands by it.
I delete it immediately.
But this person said, "Thank you for proving the point about issues with hierarchy in the NHS. My advice is be respectful, bring the nurses and HCA's food, and you may have an easier time. But with your current attitude, I wish you all the luck with getting any help from anyone." Just implying that if you don't bring me food or cake, then I ain't going to help you.
We're not meant to be bribing our colleagues to help us.
That's where we've been going wrong all this time, Neena. That's where we've been going wrong.
Oh my God. Do you know what? We need to get Neely on the case, don't we?
Totally.
We need to expand to food bribery as well.
But the icing on the cake for me, excuse the pun, was someone posted another recent tweet from this person who actually tweeted the comedian Lenny Henry a couple of weeks prior to say that his filming was disturbing the work parking where they work. But if some cake magically appeared from him for the NHS workers, then they may be able to forgive him. It's like, what's your obsession with this? What is your obsession?
Just go home and go and eat some cake, or just bring some in a Tupperware box if you need cake to be nice to people.
Like, we have Cake Club where I work now, but that is not forced on us. This is something that we decided to do ourselves a couple of weeks ago. Every Friday. This is why I've said that I try not to be celiac, or I just conveniently forget that I'm celiac on Fridays now because of Cake Club. I think. What
cake do you have?
Well, whatever. You can either make it or you can buy it. It's totally up to you. There's never any pressure, and we just take it in turns. But I bought one. Everyone else has made amazing cakes, and I bought one. But we've had carrot cake. Oh my God, we had Guinness chocolate cake, which is the best chocolate cake I've ever tasted.
Could you taste the Guinness in it?
A little bit, but not really. And obviously, all the alcohol is cooked off before people start saying, "Oh, you're having alcohol at work." But honestly, it was like the best chocolate cake I've ever had. So it's just like, it's not come from any seniors. It's very much come from our sugar cravings and the need to eat cake.
That's a mutual thing.
Yeah,
Everyone's just mutually wanting to do it. It's not, you're not doing it to bribe someone to not shout at you.
I'm thinking now maybe I should. Like, maybe I couldn't, I don't know. What's in it for me?
Do you know what? Maybe everybody should carry like a box of Smarties or something in their pocket. So every time someone shouts at them, we just like,
oh my God,
putting a Smartie in their mouth.
Neena, I do that with my dog. This is like going into a whole other territory now. This is what me and Noodle do with like a little meaty treats. I can't quite flick Smarties into people's mouths.
To be fair, I do carry a packet of Haribos in my scrub pocket usually when I'm working.
Is that for you though?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not flicking them into other people's mouths. It's a good job. Good job, little buddy. Here's a gummy bear.
Anybody shouts, every time the consultant shouts, just flick, just like...
Yeah, that's
flicking into their mouth.
Slightly different. But I really liked Zach's take to this, where he said, "I brought lobsters and Chateaubriand for all the ward staff, but matrons still had to go at me for refusing to see any patients, attend any emergency calls, or put on trousers. Honestly, I don't understand what people want anymore."
He always does have the best takes to it's always trust Zach to come up with those. Yeah,
so funny. But there's a lot of big topics this week, and going on from one which I guess we jest about because it is just so farcical, going on to something slightly more grave and serious, was the kind of amount of stuff that always comes up, but again felt particularly at the forefront this week with respect to racism in the NHS. It was just a lot of incredibly, I don't know what the word is, but hard-hitting kind of stories this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, we have quite a few of them actually, haven't we? So shall I start with Dolly's one? Dolly put a tweet up saying, "There's no racism in the NHS," in inverted commas. "Been asked twice this week, where are you from? No, where are you really from? Then these messages were sent on the first day that I joined an NHS staff chat group. FYI, I was the only Asian person in the group. I've left the chat now. And some of the messages were just ridiculous. Like one of them was said, oh, good, you'll have to teach me indie dance. Good morning, Dolly. India dancing. I'm sure you're good at it. It's just...
Where does that even come from? Like...
Where does that... I know. It's just it's so inappropriate. I don't understand how people... These are grown-ups.
I know.
How do you still... I don't understand how this still keeps happening over and over again. People just don't learn. And they genuinely don't interpret their words or their behaviours as racist, and that's more concerning. That's the worry, isn't it?
I'm very aware that I'm speaking here as like a white woman, so I can't kind of pretend to have experienced this stuff. But what people like myself need to do is it's not enough to just kind of condemn or, you know, just not be racist. We have to call out this stuff, like I guess like we're attempting to do here now, and actually be anti-racist. Because, like you say, people saying these things and not thinking that they're racist is really worrying. Or you get those comments, don't you? Like, oh, I'm not racist, or I can't be racist because I've got a black friend or whatever. Like, people need to be educated or not educated. People need to realise that is a form of racism. Like, that's not good enough.
Exactly.
It's disgusting.
It's the blind racism that's actually it's harder to tackle than overt racism.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Because
yeah, and minoritized NHS manager, who's an amazing account to follow. Her handle is minoritized NHS.
One of our favourite accounts to follow.
She's ace. Yeah, she tweeted this week, when a senior nurse tells you that they can't be racist because they support overseas recruitment, and overseas is classed as Ireland and Italy. It's like, what? It's absolutely crazy.
And in the same vein, this quote tweet of minoritised NHS managers' original tweet, a quote tweet by Evelyn Mensah, and she put, "It's the same thing with accents in the NHS. Staff and patients are more tolerant of European accents than they are of accents from countries in the African and South Asian continents."
There was a reply to that one that said, I remember the time I saw a nurse documented confused, aggressive, query delirium because they couldn't understand a Jamaican accent. It's just deplorable. It's absolutely despicable. And it worries me that there's people like this working in healthcare. I know. This is everywhere.
It's not even a few people. It's pretty rife.
Well,
it's pretty rife.
Did you see the report that came out this week?
I haven't actually read the report yet.
It was,
is that the original report by Nads White?
They retweeted it, but it was a survey by the Black Equity Org, who it was reported in The Guardian, I think, yesterday, that 75% of Black people aged between 18 and 34 have experienced prejudice while visiting doctors and hospitals, and that 65% of all Black people living in the UK have faced this discrimination from doctors, nurses and healthcare professionals. It's bad, isn't it?
And Dr. Ruby, she tweeted, wow, this is not even an angle I had considered, despite it happening to every Black person I know, including myself. Doctors and nurses are a prominent source of racist interactions. 75% of Black people have experienced it. But we're still really afraid to call it out amongst our colleagues, don't you think? I feel like I think it's still brushed under the carpet.
But I don't know if it's afraid or whether it's people either not realising it, which again is bad, or people thinking, oh, well, it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. I think there's a huge element of, well, it's not, I'm not racist and I'm not the one being prejudiced against, so I'll just go along on my day. It's not.
But that apathy is it's really hard to change, because unless we have everybody on side, regardless of their skin colour, nothing will change.
Exactly, and that's the point. So, like, what's happening? Nothing's happening. It's so depressing. And again, I realise how privileged I am saying that as a white person sitting here. It's just when people get met with, like, so I think it was Gurpreet, whose Twitter handle @GGupta tweeted something along the lines of that she had feedback suggesting that she came across as angry after presenting about racism in palliative care. When you're getting feedback like that about bringing attention to something which is actually illegal, like racism is illegal, and you're being called aggressive for bringing attention to that, where do you go from there?
No.
The whole system's
and
just...
actually, at what point, when is anger... Sometimes anger is justified.
Yeah, no, it's very much
anger
just...
is justified.
Of course it is.
Anger isn't always unprofessional when you're talking about a topic like that. And you're presenting it, and I think she wrote she didn't feel like she was presenting in an anger. It wasn't anger directed at a specific person. It was, which is unprofessional. It was just doing a presentation and feeling passionate about it because it's something that's so hurtful.
But the people who would have said that's aggressive is people who essentially feel uncomfortable with that, and that's as bad as being racist, isn't it? To like say, to have that apathy. And to not care about it to the point where you feel like someone's being aggressive by telling you about it. Doesn't sit right with me.
No.
But to all kind of fellow healthcare professionals, I include myself in that, do better, just do better. It's not good enough just to sit there and say, well, I'm not racist. Bugger that. You have to be anti-racist. You have to. Oh, gosh.
Something else that wasn't sitting quite right with us this week. Was a Christian doctor, Christian GP from Kent, who prays with his patients and says religious freedom is worth fighting for after reaching a legal settlement within the NHS. So I think he had received a number of complaints over the last 2 decades relating to offering spiritual care to some patients. So he was actually took part in discussing his use of prayer within his medical practice. I think that was what it was.
Yeah.
And he said he offered spiritual care to around 1 in 40 patients, and about 80% of the people he offered prayer or religious support to took him up on the offer. Whew.
But that shouldn't matter. No, that shouldn't matter. This person, who is, I think it's important to mention, is a white male Christian, has been offering patients spiritual care, i.e. praying for them, and has had complaints about that. And I thought about, well, if this was me, so I don't have a religion, but I think no matter kind of what religion I was faced with in that respect, if I was a patient in this kind of GP consultation and they offered me to pray for some of my symptoms or pray for healing or whatever, I'd be freaked out. I would be so annoyed.
I would be.
That's just, it's not the time. It's not the place.
It's not the place.
But what the frustrating thing then is that this was meant to go to tribunal this week or next week. But apparently in the last few days before the tribunal, chats were had, and this gentleman has reached a settlement with the NHS, so is not going to tribunal, and apparently just has to take part in a 1-day training course at the cost of £500 relating to professional boundaries. And then I assume after that, he's going to carry on practicing. Whereas we know if one of our Asian colleagues or Muslim colleague did this,
I was just going to say
oh my God, imagine what would happen.
So Stephanie DiGiorgio just wrote it perfectly. She said, a South Asian Muslim colleague would not be given this treatment. I can guarantee it. NHS England and GMC would have come down much harder if they pushed religion and asked patients if they could pray for them. But that's true, isn't it?
Exactly.
Completely true. Can you imagine the public outcry?
I know. Well,
if that was to happen.
People have gone to tribunal and been referred to the GMC for a lot less. Like, is it Dr. Aurora with the laptop over a phrase?
Yeah.
And that they have such this, like, penalised so heavily, which, you know, none of us can deny anymore that this is due to race. When you look at the outcomes of these things, ethnic minority doctors get penalised much more harshly. And then this guy reaches a settlement, attends a 1-day course, and doesn't even have to go to tribunal. It's like, make it make sense. It's fine if that's going to be your rule, but there needs to be promises that applies to everyone, no matter what their ethnic background or their religion, not just white male Christians.
But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't, no, does it?
Completely doesn't.
And Stephanie DeGiorgio also wrote, which was completely true. She goes, and the balance of power in a consultation, if someone is asked, can we pray for you, is such that people will say yes due to shock and surprise and not wanting to offend. It's only afterwards that they realise what's happened and they get upset.
Yeah.
It's not consent.
No, it's weird, man.
It's strange. Yeah, just don't do it.
Yeah. Another kind of topic that garnered a lot of frustration and input, I guess, from lots of medical Twitter mutuals this week was about industrial action and senior doctors not supporting that, essentially, I guess, is a very diplomatic way to put it. But we need tech priests meme that says cardiologists are at it again, because they very much were at it again in a number of ways.
It's always the cardiologist.
But this was an interview in the Times this week that was with the president of the Royal College of Physicians, and essentially the president was quoted as saying, the quote was, "I don't agree that strike action is the right route to go because you're talking about patients here and you're talking about impacting on patient care." And this was followed on from apparently the president has sympathised that junior doctors and the workforce was exhausted and demoralised, and then followed with that quote, which understandably got people very, very, very riled up when you think someone, of big standing, the president of the Royal College of Physicians, is in a national newspaper saying that they don't agree with industrial action and that it's compromising patient care.
And they're meant to represent you and your, you're meant to represent not just, you're not talking about just about yourself, but you're meant to be representing the actual college and the members of that college as well, aren't you?
But also Royal Colleges, not just the RCP and Royal College of Physicians, but Royal Colleges in general, and not trade unions. And I guess they should just keep quiet on this kind of stuff. Yes, acknowledge that your workforce is overstretched, demoralised, mental health in the boots or whatever, but they're not the right people to be having or making comments and statements about industrial action and the fight for pay restoration and things. We saw it in 2016. It can be incredibly damaging having upstanding consultants, senior, well-known consultants criticising junior doctors for doing what we feel like we need to do. It
has a massive impact on public perception as well.
Absolutely.
So this was a tweet by Tim Ricketts, and he put, "Have you noticed that it's always consultants who are against striking? People who didn't have 9,000 a year fees, people who have a house already and perhaps a second, and who often have tidy private practice side gigs, plus ignoring the evidence that strikes don't cause harm."
Yeah.
Disclaimer, hashtag not consultant.
I like how you had to put that in
there. I'll put that in there.
But he's got a point. But also I remember in 2016, there were certainly trainees as well, people more junior than consultants, who were very much against striking and stuff. And I hope that the actual evidence now that shows there's been no effect on mortality or morbidity during that time because of striking, I hope that proves to people now that actually you're not going to be causing patient harm. I think that's a rhetoric that's always used.
What's the alternative? The alternative is not to strike and carry on in status quo. Patients are already being harmed now because of staffing shortages, because the pay is so poor.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons.
Absolutely.
So if you don't strike and the strike is about improving future patient care. And
Rachel Clark at Dr_Oxford, who is another, I guess, well-known consultant who's actually appears to be on our side, thankfully, said it's as though there are two tiers of patients' harm now. It's fine, apparently, for patients to die in ambulances on hospital forecourts, but not for junior doctors to strike as a last resort because of the theoretical risks of harm. It's 2016 all over again. It's like, how are they different?
Yeah.
How are they different? But the RCP later that day on a Saturday evening issued a statement, and then the president of the RCP emailed all the RCP members, I think, on Monday. This is very much just my opinion. Felt like it was a bit of a backpedaling. I wasn't convinced it was a real apology when things actually state, actually, no, I apologise that my comments were misrepresented, not actually apologising for making the comments in the first place.
Exactly.
Which is a bit stinky. But yeah, lots of people thought it was a brilliant apology. Lots of people commended her for doing that, and that's absolutely fine. But I think we've been burnt before on things like this, especially in 2016, and just makes me very, very sceptical.
And I want to end with that with a tweet by Junior Doctor Truths, and they put, why is it okay for staffing to be shit chronically, but it's suddenly going to become a patient safety problem if junior doctors strike? Stop guilt tripping juniors.
Exactly. Also, quick, whilst we're on the subject of cardiologists at it again, if anyone's doing a journal club in the near future, as I say, well, no colleague of mine, but Dr. Malhotra's back with, I'm sure what he feels is a groundbreaking piece of research, or that's what he's called it, in the Journal of Insulin Resistance of all places. Sounds like a legit journal, doesn't it, Neena?
It does.
But yeah, more anti-vax rubbish being spouted, and I really don't understand why it's in the Journal of Insulin Resistance, but then someone pointed out he's actually on the editorial board for that journal, so I guess that says it all. But apparently the aim of this research was to gain better understanding of the benefits and harms of mRNA COVID vaccines, and of course the conclusion was that consent was not fully informed or ethical or legal, and that there is a case that the current COVID vaccine administration must stop until all data has been scrutinised. Interesting. I have no more words on that matter. No, yeah.
I don't want to give this guy airtime.
Exactly,
exactly.
But
let's move on to some funny tweets.
Cool.
My favourite tweet of the week. Oh, hang on. Let's move the PG rating from PG to 15/18 before we move on to this next segment. My favourite tweet of the week was by @Sunday. Was it @Sunday_girl?
This is brilliant.
She put, on the flight over to Ireland, both pilots were women, which sparked a debate amongst our group about whether using the term #cockpit was really was it appropriate. I can't even. My thing's gone. We decided to call it a clit pit, making it hijack proof, since male hijackers would never be able to find it.
Brilliant. Did you see a female pilot actually replied in the comments and said something like, "Oh,
no."
Yeah, they said, "Oh, female pilot here. I can confirm it's actually called a box office."
Is it actually?
Yeah. I saw.
Oh my gosh!
Someone who I follow retweeted that reply. I thought, and it was the reply that I saw first, and then I went back and saw the original tweet showcasing the clit pit, which I just thought was, how are people so funny, man? Like, how do people think of these things?
What was your favourite tweet of the week?
There was one I had. I don't know if it's really appropriate.
Oh, come on.
But it's, I guess it's along the same lines. But you know, sometimes when you just see like a random tweet that has like tens of thousands of likes, and then you read it and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that really resonates with me. I don't even know why, but it just said, every woman has got one good boob and one problematic boob. It's a universal truth. And I'm like, yes. Why is that so true?
I think everyone always has a favourite boob.
Oh God, yeah.
Least favourite boob.
Totally. But yeah, I don't know. I was just like one of those things that I read and I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I definitely have one of each. A good boob and a crap.
It's good to know.
Crappy
It's good
boob.
to know.
It's universal.
It is, man.
Universal.
You need to have some to know, but yeah. There's always one
Yeah,
problematic
you do,
boob. So we're just negating 50% of the
There's
listeners
always one boob that lets us down, isn't there?
Always.
Oh God.
But
always.
there was a good thread from Tim Ricketts this week, who was asking about what's your funniest medical story, the go-to story when people ask you for one. And there was lots of good responses to that. So that was tweeted at 8:33 p.m. on September the 22nd by Tim Ricketts. Did you have any kind of stories that you wanted to share, or?
Oh God, I haven't actually thought of one of my own. I probably do. I've got.
Oh, there's so many, isn't there?
There's so many.
But did you have any from the thread that you'd enjoyed? Or?
From one of the one from the thread that I loved was from, is it Steve? And he put, as a student, I used to get the phrases uvula and vulva mixed up. So he was incubating a patient. He said, "I can see the vulva now." You've gone in too far.
That's a long way down. That is a long way down.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it was just.
Do you have a favourite?
Yeah. So one of my own that it made me think of is something I tweeted about recently, and it still just makes me chuckle when I think of it. Was I was doing a supervised ward round, and my clinical supervisor was like, "Right, this is a new patient. Let's do this as like a mini KEX or a CBD." Is a 103-year-old lady had come in with dizziness, and she needed post taking and stuff. So she was like, "Right, go and do the assessment. I'll stand back. I'll watch you, and we'll do it as a proper kind of portfolio assessment." And started trying to talk to this lady who was it became quite apparent that she just didn't have a clue what I was saying. And initially we kind of thought it was because she was hard of hearing, which she was to some extent. But since then, as I tried to carry on talking, it was that I was too Welsh for her. And the nurse in the bay, one of my colleagues who was a Scouse lady, literally had to come and be my translator and just repeat everything I said.
Your accent isn't even.
I know.
She
had to just repeat everything that I said in a Scouse accent, and this lady was like, "Oh yeah, I know what you're saying." Oh my God, it was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I love Liverpool for many, many reasons. Stuff like that happening is one.
Oh, actually, I do have one that I remember. This is from quite a few years ago, but I remember it was a patient that I knew quite well. And we just after the consultation, and she asked me, "Would you mind if my mother joins the consultation?" And I was like, yeah, of course. And then she started rummaging in her bag, and I thought she was calling her mother from, the mother was in the waiting room or the car, and then she was calling her on her phone. But then she just pulls out an urn with her mother's ashes, and she plonks it on the desk next to me. And I was I'm like, do I say hello? Do I ignore the urn, or do I just include the urn in the consultation?
Goodness.
Oh my God. And then she told me, she was hilarious. We get on really well now. She's hilarious. And then she said, the week before she'd lost the urn on a bus, on the London bus. And she panicked, and she called the bus company, and she said, "I've left my mum on the bus. And then she hung up, but she forgot to tell them that her mum was actually dead.
She wasn't a person.
So she says, "I forgot to tell them, because to me she's still alive." So she goes, "You forgot to tell them." So they went to look for a little old lady, and then she went to Lost and Found, and she found the urn. And then she said the person that was working there asked her where she had found such a lovely container for her loose tea leaves. And she went, "That's my mother."
Oh my goodness.
It was I'll never forget that consultation. No. We've had many a laugh about it since then. So with the patient.
Oh God, that's unfortunate, isn't it? That's unfortunate. Yeah. I remember another time. It was my first ever night shift in F1, and it was my second week as a doctor. And I got called at 2 a.m. and they were like, "Oh, will you certify this death?" And it was on the coronary care unit, and I was just like, "Huh? Surely you know if someone's dead or not?" And they were like, "You just need to certify it," which I didn't have a clue. Don't ask me what I learned in medical school, but I didn't have a clue what that meant. So CCU was all in individual rooms. So they were like, "Oh, doctor, he's just in there." And so I walked in, and the patient was very clearly deceased. So I just kind of sat on his chair next to him, and I was just stared at him, and I was like, "Yeah, I think he's dead." So I came out the room, and I was like, "Yeah, I agree. He is dead, unfortunately." And they were like, "No, we know. You just need to do the things." And I was like, "What?"
If you haven't been told it before,
I know. And then I was like, "Why don't I know this stuff?" So I was there Googling, on the nurse's station. I was like, "Right, must check. Yeah, must listen to heart sounds for 30 seconds." So I was like, "Right, tick. But yeah, I felt so bad. But yeah, things that I guess some things you learn on the job, maybe.
Oh yeah. Hang on, there was another one from there that I really loved. Where was it?
No, this
was my favourite response. Sorry, this was my favourite response. It said, red notes for patient hallucinating new, hearing voices and seeing people outside window. In brackets, we were on the 7th floor, like plan, CT head, turn page, cancel CT, charity abseil dance outside of the building. That one completely cracked me up. Oh my God, that's the funniest thing ever.
There was one in medical school. I remember my Care the Elderly rotation in medical school, and this lady came in and kept going on about how her son was walking from China. And everyone was like, oh, she's delirious. Like, has she got any background of cognitive impairment or whatever? And she kept going on. He's like, no, he's walking from China. He's going to be here to see me or whatever. And it actually turned out he was doing a charity walk, like, across Asia. We were like, oh, okay.
Oh my God, so funny.
But
so funny.
I can't stop reading this thread. It's brilliant. But there's one from Jess Walker, the other Dr. JD. And she said, moving a patient with SVT into resus, I crashed the trolley so hard into the wall that they cardioverted. That's good medicine. That's good medicine.
That is good medicine.
Brilliant. So I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to cover.
Yeah.
I always love doing this with you, Neena. I'm always thrilled when the boys ask us back.
We have a good laugh doing it, don't we?
We do.
But we've got something exciting coming up, haven't we, Bethan?
What's that? Oh, yeah, we're going away for a weekend.
We're going on a little holiday.
Yeah, we're going away with May J as well, so that'll be nice in a couple of weeks.
And this has been we planned it ages ago. We've had to delay it for a year.
We were meant to go last September. It's classic though, isn't it? Like 3 adult friends living all sides of the bloody UK, and it's like
we finally made our diaries work a year later.
This is adulthood. This is adulthood. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be lovely, isn't it?
I know.
It's going to be good. But I hope we've covered or done the bin fire that is Med Twitter this week some service or disservice, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end it, isn't it?
It is indeed. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yes, take care. Have a good week. And as Imran says, be good. Bye.
I thought you were going to say follow the money.
Oh, also follow the money.
Or follow the money.
Well, follow the money. It's a good thing to follow. Take care, everyone.
Bye.